1. Broken mirrors. Victor Rollins adjusted his tie in the mirror of the hotel suite, his weathered hands slightly trembling, not from nervousness, but from anticipation. At 54, his once jet-black hair was now streaked with silver, but his piercing blue eyes remained unchanged, cold, calculating, and today, filled with purpose. His daughter Lily's wedding day had finally arrived, the perfect stage for what would unfold. The knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. His son-in-law's younger brother, Zach, entered with a hesitant smile. "Mr. Rollins, everyone's waiting downstairs. Lily's asking for you." Victor nodded, slipping a small device into his pocket. "Tell her I'll be right there." After Zach left, Victor pulled out his phone and checked the text from Maddox, his former military buddy. "All systems ready. Just like we planned." The ceremony at St. Augustine's Church was picturesque, white roses adorning every pew, sunlight streaming through stained glass windows. Victor walked Lily down the aisle with practiced poise, his face a mask of fatherly pride. Nobody would guess the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. As he placed Lily's hand in her fiancé Trent's, Victor scanned the crowd. His gaze locked briefly with Diana's, his ex-wife of 12 years now. She sat in the third row, her new husband Bobby Kessler beside her. Behind them was Leo Novak, once Victor's closest friend and business partner. The sight of them together made his jaw clench. Later, during the reception at the Grand Westlake Hotel, Victor played his role perfectly, dancing with Lily, giving a heartfelt toast, smiling for photographs. To everyone present, he appeared to have moved on from the bitter divorce that had scandalized their social circle over a decade ago. As the evening progressed, Victor spotted Diana moving purposefully through the crowd with Bobby and Leo trailing behind her. Her face was set with determination that he recognized all too well. Before they could reach him, Lily appeared suddenly at his side, gripping his arm with unexpected force. Her eyes, so like her mother's, were wide with worry. "Dad?" she whispered urgently. "Whatever happens tonight is not my fault. I tried to talk them out of it, but they wouldn't listen." Victor patted her hand reassuringly. "It's okay, sweetheart. I've been expecting this." "You don't understand," Lily insisted, her voice cracking. "They're going to." "I understand more than you think," Victor cut her off gently. "Go enjoy your reception. This is between me and them." As Lily reluctantly returned to her new husband, Victor checked his watch. The timing would be perfect. Chapter 2. Shattered Foundations. 12 years earlier, Victor Rollins returned early from a business trip to Chicago, a successful merger completed 2 days ahead of schedule. He'd left Diana a voicemail that morning but received no response, not unusual given her busy schedule running her art gallery. The house was quiet when he arrived, but Diana's car was in the driveway, alongside another vehicle he didn't recognize, a sleek black Audi with custom rims. Victor felt the first prickling of unease as he silently entered through the side door. The sounds from upstairs left little to the imagination. Still, Victor climbed each step methodically, his mind already shifting from shock to cold, calculated rage. The master bedroom door was partially open. Inside, Diana arrived atop a man Victor immediately recognized, Leo Novak, his business partner of 15 years and best friend since college. Family photographs grinned mockingly from the dresser as Victor watched their betrayal unfold for precisely 30 seconds before clearing his throat. Diana's scream echoed through the house as she scrambled to cover herself. Leo jumped up, fumbling for his clothes. "Victor, Jesus, I can explain," Leo stammered. Victor remained unnaturally calm. "How long?" Diana was crying now. "Please, it's not what you think." 3 years, Leo blurted, as if honesty might somehow save him. "It just happened, and then we couldn't stop. I never meant to hurt you, man." Victor nodded slowly, his expression unchanged. "I see." The divorce proceedings that followed were swift but vicious. Diana hired Terrence Mills, the most aggressive divorce attorney in the state. They accused Victor of emotional neglect, workaholic tendencies, and hidden assets. Leo testified against him, claiming Victor had been squeezing him out of their shared business ventures. Their mutual friends largely sided with Diana and Leo, who painted Victor as cold and calculating. Worst of all, his children, Lily, then 16, and Mason, 14, became pawns in Diana's game. She filled their heads with half-truths and outright lies. Victor lost more than his marriage that year. The custody battle left him with only alternate weekends with his children. The business partnership dissolved messily, with Leo walking away with several key clients. Even Victor's reputation suffered as rumors spread through their social circle. While Diana claimed half his assets and moved in with Leo, Victor retreated to rebuild. He sold their family home, purchased a modern apartment downtown, and methodically began creating a new company from scratch. On the surface, he appeared to accept his losses with dignity. Few people noticed the change in Victor's eyes, how they never quite warmed when he smiled, how they tracked Diana and Leo whenever their paths crossed at community events. Even fewer knew about the detailed journals he kept, documenting every slight, every lie, every betrayal, not just from Diana and Leo, but from everyone who had abandoned him. Patience is the truest form of power, Victor reminded himself each night as he added to his records. And revenge is a dish best served at the perfect moment. 3 years after the divorce, Diana and Leo's relationship imploded spectacularly. Leo moved on quickly, marrying a younger woman 6 months later. Diana, now approaching 40, found comfort in the arms of Bobby Kessler, a charismatic real estate developer with a questionable reputation and business practices almost as ruthless as Victor's. Throughout it all, Victor watched. He waited. He built his new company, Paragon Innovations, into an even more successful enterprise than before. He maintained cordial relationships with his now-adult children, though they remained distant, especially Mason, who had fully embraced his stepfather's influence. Then came Lily's engagement to Trent Montgomery, from a well-respected family that moved in the same social circles. Victor recognized the opportunity immediately. The perfect stage was being set. The wedding reception was in full swing, the band playing a slow, jazzy number as couples swayed on the dance floor. Victor checked his watch again, 11:40 p.m. Almost time. Diana had been watching him all evening, whispering with Bobby and Leo between forced smiles and polite conversation with other guests. Victor could practically feel the tension building. After the last dance, as guests began saying their goodbyes, Diana finally made her move. With Bobby and Leo flanking her, she approached Victor in a relatively quiet corner near the terrace doors. Chapter 3. The Confrontation. "We need to talk," she said, her voice tight. Victor smiled pleasantly. "Diana, lovely to see you too." Leo. Bobby Kessler, tall and tan with artificially white teeth, stood protectively close to Diana. Leo hung back slightly, unable to meet Victor's gaze directly. "Cut the crap, Victor," Diana hissed. "We know what you've been doing." Victor raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly have I been doing?" "It's time you answer for what you did to our family," Diana continued, her voice rising slightly. "We have proof of everything. The offshore accounts, the shell companies, how you've been manipulating Mason against Bobby." Several nearby guests turned to look, prompting Diana to lower her voice. "You've been poisoning our son's mind, turning him against his stepfather," she continued. "And now we've discovered you're the anonymous buyer trying to sabotage Bobby's Riverside development project." Victor checked his watch again, 11:48 p.m. "Interesting theory," he replied calmly. "Though I'm curious why you'd choose our daughter's wedding reception for this confrontation." "Because you've left us no choice," Leo interjected, finding his courage. "You've been systematically trying to destroy everything we've built since the divorce." Victor's smile never reached his eyes. "That's quite an accusation from the man who slept with my wife for 3 years. Bobby stepped forward menacingly. "Listen here, you smug bastard. We've got evidence that you've been." Suddenly, the lights throughout the ballroom cut out, plunging the reception into darkness. Security lights kicked in seconds later, casting an eerie blue glow across the room. A scream pierced the air, Lily's voice from across the room. "Dad, help." Victor moved quickly toward his daughter's voice, Diana and the others following. They found Lily standing near the gift table, pointing at an open laptop that hadn't been there before. As guests gathered around, the screen flickered to life, displaying a video. Diana gasped as her own face appeared on screen, sitting in what appeared to be a hotel room with Bobby. "How much longer do we have to wait?" Diana's recorded voice asked. "Just until after the wedding," Bobby replied. "Once Trent's family finalizes the investment in our project, we can move forward with the plan. Victor won't know what hit him until it's too late." The video continued, revealing an elaborate scheme to use Lily's marriage as a way to access investment capital from Trent's family for a fraudulent development project. More damning still were the references to previous cons Bobby had orchestrated, with Diana's full knowledge and participation. Diana lunged for the laptop. "Turn it off. This is doctored footage." But the video continued, showing Bobby and Leo discussing how they had systematically siphoned money from their investors for years. The timestamp showed the recording was from just 3 weeks ago. Trent's father, William Montgomery, pushed through the crowd, his face ashen. "What the hell is this, Kessler?" As chaos erupted, Victor noticed his son Mason standing by the terrace door, his expression shifting from shock to understanding as he looked at his mother and stepfather with new eyes. The hotel security staff arrived, followed by 2 men in suits who flashed FBI badges. The lead agent approached Bobby Kessler. "Robert Kessler, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, investment fraud, and racketeering." As Bobby was being handcuffed, his eyes locked with Victor's. Understanding dawned on his face. "You set this up. You've been planning this all along." Victor merely shrugged, his expression neutral. "I believe in justice, Bobby. Sometimes it just needs a little assistance." Diana rushed to Victor, her face contorted with rage and panic. "What have you done? You've ruined everything." "No, Diana," Victor replied calmly. "You did that 12 years ago. I'm just making sure everyone sees the truth." As Diana was led away for questioning, Lily approached her father, tears streaming down her face. "Did you know about Mom and Bobby's plan to use my wedding?" Victor nodded solemnly. "I discovered it 6 months ago. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I couldn't tell you. You wouldn't have believed me without proof." "But how did you?" Lily began. "That's not important now," Victor cut her off gently. "What matters is that you and Trent are protected." As the guests were ushered out and statements taken, Victor stood alone by the terrace, watching the night sky. Phase 1 was complete, but his plan was far from finished. Diana and Bobby's public humiliation and legal troubles were just the beginning. Leo had slipped away in the chaos, exactly as Victor had anticipated. The real reckoning was yet to come. Chapter 4: Calculated Moves. 3 weeks after the wedding disaster, Victor sat in his downtown penthouse office, studying the cascade of news articles covering what the press had dubbed the wedding sting. Bobby Kessler was denied bail, facing multiple federal charges. Diana, while not yet charged, was under investigation as a potential co-conspirator. The Montgomery family had publicly distanced themselves from the scandal while supporting Trent and Lily, who had postponed their honeymoon indefinitely. A knock at the door preceded Maddox Bryant's entrance. The former military intelligence specialist had been working with Victor for the past 5 years, officially as his head of security, unofficially as something much more valuable. "Leo Novak has surfaced in Toronto," Maddox reported, placing a manila folder on Victor's desk. "He's staying at his sister's condo under an assumed name. Seems he anticipated the fallout." Victor nodded, unsurprised. "And Mason? He's been trying to contact you. Left 3 voicemails yesterday." Victor picked up the folder, examining the surveillance photos of Leo. "What about our friend in the district attorney's office?" "Gloria says they're building a case against Diana. They found evidence in Bobby's files that she was actively involved in at least 3 of his fraudulent schemes, including the one targeting the Montgomerys." Victor allowed himself a small smile. "And the offshore accounts? All traced back to Bobby and Diana, just as we arranged. Your name doesn't appear anywhere." Victor leaned back in his chair, satisfied with the progress. The FBI raid on Bobby's offices had uncovered exactly what Victor had planted there: evidence of financial crimes carefully constructed to implicate Diana as well. The video played at the wedding had been just the tip of the iceberg. "What about Lily?" Victor asked, his expression softening slightly. "She's staying with friends in Vermont. According to our sources, she and Trent are working things out. The Montgomerys are grateful you exposed the scheme before they invested in Bobby's project." Victor nodded thoughtfully. Lily had been an unfortunate casualty in his plan, though he'd taken steps to minimize the damage to her. She would recover, especially with the Montgomery family's support. "It's time for Phase 2, Victor announced, standing to look out over the city skyline. "Contact our friend at Immigration and Customs. Let's make sure Leo's stay in Canada becomes problematic." Later that evening, Victor finally returned Mason's calls. His son answered on the first ring. Dad, Mason's voice was strained. I've been trying to reach you for days. I've been busy, Victor replied evenly. Legal matters related to the wedding incident. Is it true? Everything they're saying about Mom and Bobby. Victor heard the pain in his son's voice. Mason had been 16 when Diana remarried, old enough to be influenced by Bobby's manipulative charm. For years, Bobby had positioned himself as a mentor to Mason, undermining Victor's relationship with his son. I don't take pleasure in saying this, Mason, but yes, the evidence is substantial. A long silence followed. I trusted him, Mason finally said, his voice cracking. All these years I thought. I believed what they told me about you. People show their true colors eventually, Victor said, careful to sound sympathetic rather than vindicated. Bobby was very good at presenting the image he wanted others to see. Can we meet? Please? There's so much I need to understand. Victor hesitated, remembering the years of rejection, the birthdays and holidays Mason had chosen to spend with Diana and Bobby rather than him. The times Mason had openly sided with them during the divorce and aftermath. Tomorrow, Victor decided. Come to my office at noon. After hanging up, Victor opened his personal safe and removed a leather-bound journal, one of many chronicling the betrayals he'd endured. He flipped to a page marked Mason and reviewed the detailed entries of each slight, each hurtful comment, each time his son had chosen Diana's side over his. Victor ran his finger down the page, his expression hardening. Mason would have his own part to play in what was coming, not as an ally, but as another piece in Victor's grand design of retribution. Chapter 5. Wounds Reopened. The meeting with Mason was exactly what Victor had anticipated, emotional, filled with apologies and regrets. His son, now 26, looked haggard and confused, his worldview shattered by the revelations about his mother and stepfather. I should have seen it, Mason lamented, pacing Victor's office. All those late-night meetings, the mysterious phone calls, the way they'd stop talking when I entered a room. Victor observed his son carefully, noting the genuine distress. Bobby was skilled at deception. He fooled many people. But not you, Mason said, stopping to face his father. You knew, didn't you? Long before the wedding. Victor nodded slightly. I had suspicions. I hired investigators. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Victor countered calmly. Think about our relationship these past years, Mason. When was the last time you truly listened to anything I had to say? Mason flinched as if struck. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am. Victor stood, moving to the bar to pour 2 glasses of bourbon. He handed one to Mason, allowing their fingers to brush briefly, the first physical contact they'd had in years. What happens now? Mason asked, sipping the drink. With Mom, I mean. That depends on the prosecutors, Victor replied, and on how much she knew about Bobby's activities. Mason's eyes narrowed slightly. You don't seem surprised by any of this, or particularly upset. Victor measured his response carefully. I processed my feelings about your mother a long time ago, Mason. 12 years gives a man perspective. Later that day, after Mason left, Victor contacted Maddox with new instructions. It's time to move on, Leo. Make the anonymous tip to Canadian authorities about his fraudulent visa application, and release the financial records linking him to Bobby's schemes. Maddox nodded, already typing notes. What about the woman? His wife. Cynthia Novak is not our concern, Victor replied coldly. But make sure she understands her husband's true nature. Send her the photos. The photos were evidence of Leo's latest infidelity, a pattern he had continued long after the affair with Diana. Victor had collected this information methodically, waiting for the perfect moment to deploy it. Within 48 hours, Leo Novak was detained by Canadian immigration officials based on evidence of document fraud. Simultaneously, his name appeared in American news reports connecting him to Bobby Kessler's criminal enterprises. Before he could be extradited back to face charges, Cynthia filed for divorce after receiving an anonymous package containing irrefutable evidence of multiple affairs. Leo's carefully constructed life was unraveling precisely as Victor had designed. Meanwhile, Diana was formally charged as a co-conspirator in 2 of Bobby's schemes. Released on bail, but with her assets frozen, she was forced to move into a modest apartment, her social standing and reputation destroyed. Victor watched these developments with clinical detachment, checking items off his mental list. But his plan was far from complete. The next phase would be more personal and considerably more painful for those who had betrayed him. Chapter 6. The Spider's Web. 1 month after Diana's arraignment, Victor arranged a seemingly chance encounter with her at a local cafe. She looked dramatically different. The designer clothes replaced by off-the-rack attire, her carefully maintained appearance showing signs of neglect. When she spotted him, her expression cycled through shock, anger, and finally, a calculation that Victor recognized all too well. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the empty chair at her table. Diana stiffened but nodded, watching him warily as he sat down. "You look well, Victor," she said, attempting to maintain dignity. "You don't," he replied bluntly, studying her face. "Legal troubles taking their toll?" Diana's eyes flashed with anger. "Did you come here to gloat? Is that it?" "Actually, I came to offer a proposition." Diana's expression shifted immediately, hope replacing indignation. Just as Victor had predicted, Diana had always been pragmatic when it came to self-preservation. "What kind of proposition?" she asked cautiously. "I still have considerable influence," Victor explained, his tone businesslike. "And certain evidence against you could potentially disappear before trial." Diana leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Why would you help me after everything?" "Not for free," Victor clarified. "I want information, everything you know about Bobby's other partners, especially Gregory Winters and Thomas Lang." These names were carefully chosen. Men Victor knew were deeply involved in Bobby's fraudulent schemes, but who had so far escaped scrutiny. Diana hesitated, weighing her options. "If I tell you everything, you'll help make the charges go away?" Victor nodded solemnly. "You'll need to be thorough. Every detail, every meeting, every transaction you witnessed." By the end of their meeting, Diana had agreed to provide a sworn statement detailing her knowledge of Bobby's criminal network. Victor had Maddox arrange for a private investigator posing as his attorney to record her confession. What Diana didn't know was that Victor had no intention of helping her. Her statement, once obtained, would go directly to the prosecutors, securing her conviction while simultaneously ensnaring Bobby's remaining associates. Meanwhile, Leo Novak had been extradited back to the United States, facing both federal charges and the ruins of his personal life. Victor arranged to visit him in detention, a meeting Leo couldn't refuse given his desperate circumstances. The detention center's visiting room was stark and impersonal, exactly the setting Victor wanted for their reunion. Leo looked broken, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. He flinched visibly when Victor entered. "Hello, Leo," Victor greeted him calmly, taking a seat across the table. "It's been a while. What do you want?" Leo asked hoarsely. "Haven't you done enough?" Victor tilted his head slightly. "Done enough? I haven't done anything, Leo. Your current situation is entirely self-inflicted." "Bullshit," Leo spat, leaning forward. "This has you written all over it. The timing, the evidence suddenly appearing, you engineered all of it." Victor allowed himself a small smile. "That's quite a conspiracy theory. Perhaps prison is making you paranoid." "Why are you here, Victor?" "To gloat." "No. I'm here to offer you a chance, likely your only chance, to avoid spending the next 20 years in federal prison." Leo's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What kind of chance?" "Cooperation," Victor replied simply. "A full confession implicating Bobby Kessler as the mastermind, with you as merely a pawn in his schemes." "And why would you help me after what happened?" Victor leaned back in his chair. "Let's call it closure. A final chapter to our long history." The irony wasn't lost on Leo. Victor offering help using almost the exact words Leo had used when testifying against him during the divorce proceedings. "What's the catch?" Leo asked, desperation evident in his voice. "The confession must be complete," Victor explained, "including your testimony about Diana's full involvement from the beginning. No protecting her, no minimizing her role." Leo hesitated, weighing his options, which were, in reality, non-existent. Victor had ensured that Leo was completely cornered. "I'll need assurances," Leo finally said. "Written guarantees of reduced charges." Victor nodded sympathetically. "Of course. My attorney will handle everything." As with Diana, the attorney would be one of Maddox's associates, and Leo's confession would serve only to further entrap him and Diana, not to secure his freedom. By the time both Leo and Diana realized they'd been manipulated into providing evidence against each other, it would be too late. Victor would have ensured that neither could ever rebuild their lives. Phase 2 was nearly complete, but Victor's ultimate revenge required one final, devastating act. One that would tear open old wounds and create new ones that would never heal. Chapter 7. Shattered Illusions. 6 months after the wedding incident, Victor invited both his children to his penthouse for dinner, the first time the three of them had been together in years. Lily had gradually returned to normal life, her marriage to Trent surviving the scandal. Mason had been trying to rebuild his relationship with Victor, making regular efforts to connect. The dinner began pleasantly enough, with careful conversation about neutral topics. Victor had his housekeeper prepare an elaborate meal, and he presented an image of fatherly warmth that both his children seemed to crave. "I've missed this," Lily admitted after her second glass of wine. "The three of us together." Mason nodded in agreement. "It feels like old times. Before everything went wrong." Victor smiled enigmatically. "Speaking of old times, I have something to share with both of you." He retrieved a leather portfolio from his study and placed it on the dining table. "I've been reluctant to show you this, but given recent events, I think it's time you understood the full picture." Inside the portfolio were documents, photographs, and transcripts that Victor had collected over 12 years. Evidence not just of Diana and Leo's betrayal, but of a much deeper conspiracy. "What is all this?" Mason asked, picking up a photograph showing Diana and Bobby together, dated 3 years before the divorce, long before Diana claimed to have met him. "The truth," Victor replied simply. "Your mother didn't just have an affair with Leo. She and Bobby had been planning to take control of my company for years. Leo was merely a pawn in their game." Lily shook her head in disbelief. "That can't be right. Mom wouldn't." "Read the transcripts," Victor interrupted gently, sliding several papers toward her. Phone conversations between Diana and Bobby dating back 15 years. Their plan was elaborate. Use Leo to create the affair scandal, file for divorce, take half my assets, then systematically destroy what remained of my reputation and business. Mason paled as he read. "This says Mom deliberately turned us against you. That she coached us on what to say during the custody hearings." Victor watched his children carefully, gauging their reactions. "You were both young, easily influenced. Diana knew exactly how to manipulate your perceptions. Why are you showing us this now?" Lily demanded, tears forming in her eyes. "Because there's more," Victor said, his voice softening. "Something I discovered only recently that changes everything." He removed a final document from the portfolio, a DNA test result. "I had suspicions for years," Victor explained as Mason reached for the paper. "Certain inconsistencies in the family medical history. Comments Diana made when she thought I wasn't listening." Mason scanned the document, his face draining of color. "This says this can't be right." "What is it?" Lily asked, reaching for the paper. She gasped as she read the results. "Dad, this says you're not Mason's biological father." The silence that followed was deafening. Mason stared at Victor, shock and betrayal written across his face. Additional testing confirmed it. Victor continued calmly. "Bobby Kessler is your biological father, Mason. Diana was involved with him long before our marriage ended, possibly before it even began." Mason stood abruptly, the chair crashing to the floor behind him. "This is insane. You're making this up to turn us against Mom. Why would I lie about something so easily verified?" Victor asked reasonably. "You can request your own test if you doubt the results." Lily was crying openly now. "Did Mom know?" "All this time." Victor nodded solemnly. "The evidence suggests she's always known. The timeline of her relationship with Bobby confirms it." Mason was shaking, tears streaming down his face. "All these years, everything was a lie." "Not everything," Victor assured him, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "My feelings for you never changed. I raised you as my son, loved you as my son. Biology doesn't change that." It was a calculated statement, the perfect mixture of seeming compassion and devastating revelation. Victor watched as Mason struggled to process the information, his entire identity thrown into question. "I need air," Mason declared suddenly, heading for the terrace. Lily followed him, throwing a confused glance back at Victor. "Why now, Dad? Why tell us all this now?" Victor sighed heavily, the picture of reluctant truth-teller. "Because you both deserve to know before Diana's trial begins next month. The prosecution may uncover this information, and I wanted you to hear it from me first." As his children huddled together on the terrace, Victor cleared the dinner dishes with methodical precision. The DNA test was, in fact, completely fabricated, a masterstroke in his revenge plan. Mason was indeed his biological son, but the seed of doubt now planted would destroy whatever remaining relationship Mason had with Diana, while simultaneously creating a wound between Mason and Victor that would never fully heal, a constant reminder of Diana's betrayal. Victor had gambled that Mason's anger would be directed primarily at Diana and Bobby, not at him. And from the heated phone call Mason made to his mother from the terrace, it appeared the gamble had paid off. Phase 3 was proceeding exactly as planned. Chapter 8, Fall from Grace. Diana's trial began with extensive media coverage, fueled by the scandalous nature of the case and the high-profile victims of her and Bobby's schemes. Victor attended each day, sitting stoically in the back row of the courtroom, his presence a silent accusation. The prosecution's case was formidable, bolstered by the evidence Victor had meticulously collected and anonymously provided. Diana's own recorded confession to Victor's fake attorney was particularly damning, as was Leo's testimony against her as part of his plea deal. Mason refused to attend the trial or speak with Diana, the fabricated DNA test having shattered their relationship beyond repair. Lily came only for the opening statements, unable to bear seeing her mother's public disgrace. On the trial's fourth day, the prosecutor called a surprise witness, Gregory Winters, one of Bobby's former business partners whom Diana had implicated in her confession. Instead of pleading the fifth as expected, Winters had made a deal for immunity, and his testimony was devastating. Diana Kessler wasn't just aware of the fraudulent activities, Winters testified. She was often the architect of the most elaborate schemes. Bobby used to joke that she had missed her calling as a con artist. Winters went on to describe meetings where Diana had suggested targeting specific wealthy families through their children, including a plan years in the making to access the Montgomery fortune through Lily's marriage. By the time Winters finished his testimony, Diana appeared physically ill, her carefully maintained facade crumbling under the weight of exposed truths. During a recess, Diana's attorney approached Victor in the hallway. "She wants to speak with you," the lawyer said tersely. Privately, Victor considered the request, then nodded. 5 minutes. In a small conference room, Diana sat hunched at the table, looking far older than her 52 years. When she looked up at Victor, her eyes held a mixture of hatred and desperation. "Are you satisfied?" she asked hoarsely. "You've taken everything from me." Victor remained standing, his posture relaxed. "You took everything from me first, Diana. I'm merely ensuring the scales are balanced." "This is about balance. You've destroyed me completely. My children won't speak to me, my reputation is ruined, I'm facing prison time." "All consequences of your own actions," Victor interrupted calmly. "You chose this path 12 years ago." Diana's expression changed suddenly, a calculating look Victor recognized all too well. "There's still time to stop this. You have influence with the prosecutors. If you ask them to consider a plea deal." "Why would I do that?" "For Mason's sake," Diana said, leaning forward. "Do you think he'll ever recover from believing Bobby is his real father? From thinking I lied to him his entire life?" Victor's expression remained impassive. An unfortunate casualty. Diana's eyes widened with sudden understanding. "The test was fake, wasn't it? You fabricated the whole thing." Victor neither confirmed nor denied, merely checking his watch. "Our time is up." "You bastard," Diana whispered, her voice breaking. "You've turned our son against me with a lie. How could you do that to him? To your own child?" Victor paused at the door, looking back at his ex-wife. "Consider it the final lesson I could teach him about trust and betrayal. Something I learned from you." As Victor walked away, Diana called after him. "This isn't over, Victor. The truth always comes out eventually." But they both knew it was, indeed, over. Diana would be convicted within the week, sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, 1 year for each year of their marriage, a coincidence that Victor found poetically appropriate. Leo Novak received a reduced sentence of 8 years as part of his cooperation agreement, but the testimony he provided ensured he would never rebuild his reputation or business connections. His ex-wife had taken most of his remaining assets in their divorce, and his adult children had publicly disowned him. Bobby Kessler, as the ringleader of the criminal enterprise, was sentenced to 20 years without possibility of parole. His extensive properties and accounts were seized, leaving him with nothing. Victor had systematically dismantled the lives of everyone who had betrayed him, exactly as he had planned for 12 long years. But there was still one loose end to address, one final act that would complete his revenge. Chapter 9. The Ashes of Redemption. 2 years after Diana's conviction, Victor stood alone on the observation deck of his new office building, a 40-story tower that dominated the city skyline, physical testament to his complete recovery from the betrayal that had nearly destroyed him. The elevator door opened behind him, and Maddox stepped onto the deck. "They're here," he announced quietly. Victor nodded without turning. "Send them up." Minutes later, Lily and Mason emerged from the elevator. At 28, Lily had grown into a confident woman, her marriage to Trent having survived the scandal surrounding their wedding. Mason, now 30, looked remarkably like Victor at that age, except for the wariness in his eyes. "Thank you both for coming," Victor greeted them, gesturing toward the seating area he'd arranged near the edge of the deck. "Your message sounded urgent," Lily said, kissing her father's cheek before sitting down. "Is everything okay?" Mason remained standing, maintaining distance. His relationship with Victor had been strained since the night of the DNA revelation, vacillating between attempts at reconciliation and periods of complete silence. "I wanted to speak with you both before the news becomes public," Victor explained, taking a seat opposite Lily. "I've been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The prognosis isn't good." Lily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Mason's stoic expression cracked slightly, showing genuine concern beneath the practiced indifference. "How long?" Mason asked quietly. 3 months, possibly 6 with aggressive treatment," Victor replied evenly. "I've decided against treatment. Quality over quantity." Lily began crying softly. Even Mason looked shaken, finally moving to sit beside his sister. "There are arrangements to be made," Victor continued practically. "I've updated my will, of course. You'll both be well provided for." "Dad, stop," Lily interrupted. "We don't care about the money. There must be something the doctors can do." Victor shook his head. "The decision is made. But there's something else I need to tell you both, something I should have shared long ago." He removed an envelope from his jacket and handed it to Mason. "The truth about the DNA test I showed you 2 years ago." Mason stared at the envelope, not opening it. "What about it?" "It was fabricated," Victor admitted, watching his son's face carefully. "A complete fiction. You are, biologically, my son." The silence that followed was profound. Mason's expression cycled through confusion, realization, and finally, cold fury. "You lied to me," he said quietly, dangerously. "You let me believe that my whole life was a lie. That Mom had." He stopped, unable to continue. "Yes," Victor acknowledged without apology. "I did." "Why?" Lily demanded, her grief now mingled with anger. "How could you do something so cruel?" Victor looked between his children, his expression finally softening. "Because revenge consumed me. For 12 years, I planned how to destroy everyone who had betrayed me. Diana, Leo, Bobby. You two were the only ones I ever truly loved. But even that love became twisted by my need for retribution." Mason stood abruptly, turning away to hide the tears streaming down his face. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I haven't spoken to Mom in 2 years because of this lie." "I know," Victor said simply. "My actions were unforgivable." "Then why tell us now?" Lily asked, wiping her eyes. "Why not take this to your grave?" Victor looked out over the city before answering. "Because my impending death has given me clarity. The revenge I sought has left me empty. I destroyed everything and everyone who hurt me, but found no peace in doing so." He stood, moving to stand beside Mason at the railing. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you both to know the truth before I'm gone." Mason turned to face him, his expression hardened. "Is this even true? The cancer? Or just another manipulation?" Without a word, Victor handed him another envelope containing his medical records and diagnosis. "You can verify everything with Dr. Landon," Victor said quietly. "This, at least, is not a lie." Mason scanned the documents, his hands trembling slightly. "Jesus, Dad." Lily joined them at the railing, taking Victor's hand. "What happens now?" "Now you both have a choice," Victor replied. "You can walk away, which I would understand completely. Or we can use these final months to try to rebuild something from the ashes of what my revenge destroyed. Mason turned to face his father directly. Did you ever consider that your revenge might cost you us? That we'd never forgive you once we learned the truth? Victor nodded slowly. I considered it, and decided it was a price I was willing to pay. And now? Mason pressed. Now I realize it was too high a price, Victor admitted. But we rarely see clearly until it's too late. The three stood in silence, looking out over the city as the sun began to set. Eventually, Lily spoke. I'll come see you tomorrow. We can talk about treatment options, second opinions. Victor squeezed her hand gratefully, then looked to Mason, who remained silent for a long moment. I need time, Mason finally said. But I'll call you next week. It wasn't forgiveness. Perhaps forgiveness would never come, but it was something. A possibility, however slight. After his children left, Victor remained on the observation deck as darkness fell, city lights blinking on below him. Maddox appeared silently at his side. Was it worth it? Maddox asked quietly. All of it. Victor considered the question carefully, thinking of Diana in her prison cell, Leo and Bobby similarly confined, their reputations and lives destroyed. He thought of the moment when he'd finally revealed his role in their downfall, the look of comprehension and horror on their faces. He thought, too, of the damaged relationships with his children that might never be fully repaired, even in his final months. No, Victor finally answered, his voice barely audible above the wind. But it's done now. All of it. Maddox nodded, respecting the finality in Victor's tone. The arrangements for your treatment in Switzerland are confirmed. New identity, documents, accounts, everything's ready. Once the funeral is over, you can disappear completely. Victor smiled faintly. There was no cancer diagnosis, of course. The terminal illness was his final deception, a way to give his children closure while allowing him to vanish from their lives. They would mourn him, perhaps even forgive him posthumously, never knowing he was living comfortably in a villa overlooking Lake Geneva. It wasn't a perfect ending, but for a man who had dedicated 12 years to methodical revenge, it was fitting. Victor Rollins would die, leaving his children to heal and move forward without the shadow of his vengeance. And he would watch from afar, alone but victorious, the ultimate architect of his own elaborate punishment and reward. Make the travel arrangements, Victor instructed Maddox. It's time for Victor Rollins to die. As Maddox left, Victor turned for one last look at the city he had conquered twice. First through honest ambition, then through calculated retribution. He felt no regret for what he'd done to Diana, Leo, or Bobby. They had earned their fate through betrayal. His only regret was the collateral damage to his children, innocent victims in his war of revenge. Perhaps that was his true punishment, winning every battle but ultimately losing what mattered most. But Victor Rollins had never been a man to dwell on regrets. He had a new life waiting, a new identity to assume. The past was finally, truly behind him. Revenge, in the end, had consumed everything, including himself. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.